I was his wife, until I found her wedding ring. I used to believe I had everything. A stable job, a cozy little home with white shutters and a garden he built for me on our anniversary. And most of all, a husband who kissed my forehead every morning and said, "You make the world feel like home." But that was before I found her wedding ring in our kitchen drawer. At first, I thought it was mine. It looked similar, simple gold with our wedding date carved inside. But when I turned it over, I noticed something strange. The date wasn't ours. It was just 6 months ago, but we had been married for 3 years. And the name carved inside wasn't what mine. I sat on the floor, holding the ring, my heart thudding like a war drum. My first instinct was to tell myself it was a mistake. Maybe it belonged to a friend, maybe he was planning a surprise, a vow renewal. But the truth, like a splinter under my skin, refused to be ignored. That night, when he came home from work, I didn't ask anything. I watched him instead. The way he hugged me, but didn't meet my eyes, the way he jumped when his phone buzzed, the way he turned its screen down on the table. I used to think those were small things. Now they screamed. 3 days later, I followed him. I told him I had to work late. I even packed my laptop to sell the lie. But instead, I sat in my car just down the block from his office. At 6:17 p.m., he exited the building in his usual navy coat and walked straight into the arms of another woman. She was pretty, not drop-dead gorgeous, but soft, kind-looking. She smiled at him like I used to, touched his arm, kissed his cheek. And when he took her hand and led her to his car, I noticed it. Her wedding ring. The same ring I had found. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there in stunned silence, my body numb while my heart burned. That night, when he came home smelling faintly of lavender, her perfume, I played the role of perfect wife. I served him dinner, laughed at his dumb joke, kissed him goodnight. But in the dark, I opened my phone, and I searched her name. Because I remembered it, Grace Wilkins, etched in delicate cursive inside the band. What I didn't expect was to find a wedding announcement. 6 months ago, location Charleston, South Carolina. Bride Grace Wilkins, groom Daniel C. Matthews. My husband. For 3 nights, I barely slept. And on the fourth day, I drove. I drove across state lines to Charleston to the church listed in the announcement, and there, framed on a bulletin board next to baby dedications and fundraisers, was a photograph of them. Him in a black tuxedo, her in a satin gown, his hand on her waist, the same way he held me. He didn't just cheat. He married her. When I got back home, I stared at my marriage certificate for hours. I called the courthouse. "Can someone be married to two people at the same time?" he asked. The clerk was silent for a moment, then replied, "Not legally. That would be bigamy. It's a felony in most states." I almost laughed. A felony, like some twisted crime drama. But this wasn't TV. This was my life. I planned to confront him. I even wrote the speech in my head. "You lied to me. You married another woman while still being married to me. Do you know how sick that is?" But the words never came out, because before I could confront him, someone else knocked on my door. When I opened it, Great Grace stood there, her eyes swollen, her hands shaken. "I know about you," she said. "And I think he married us both." The wife he didn't expect to meet, I stared at her, unsure whether I should slam the door or invite her in. Grace, the other wife, stood on my porch, holding a manila envelope to her chest like it was the last piece of her sanity. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. No, they were the kind of red that comes after, when grief hardens into fury. "I found your name on his insurance papers," she said. "You were listed as his emergency contact." I said nothing. "What kind of emergency puts your first wife's name on the file?" she added, her voice shaking. That's when it hit me. She didn't come here to fight. She came here because she thought we were both victims. And she was right. I let her in. We sat in silence for a long while, both of us sipping lukewarm tea I didn't even remember making. It was awkward, painful, like standing in front of a mirror, but the reflection was slightly off. We had similar stories, same lies, same charming smiles, same promises whispered in the dark. She showed me a photo album, pictures from their wedding, their honeymoon in Mexico. I showed her the birthday letters he had written to me. 3 years' worth of affection, built on a foundation of deceit. He didn't just marry two women. He lived two entire lives. "I thought I was the only one," Grace whispered. "I thought maybe I was the mistake." "You weren't," I said. "And neither were you," she replied. That's when something unspoken passed between us, a silent pact. We didn't say it out loud, but we both felt it. This wasn't over. The next day, we went to the courthouse. I requested a full marriage record search. Grace did the same. What we found chilled us both. There was another name. Not just Grace and me. A third woman. Her name was Elena Vasquez, married to Daniel Charles Matthews. Last year. A third ring, a third life. We sat in my car, completely silent. Grace opened her phone and began searching for Elena. It didn't take long. Facebook revealed a picture of her, a smiling woman in scrubs holding a stethoscope and a dog. Her caption read, "Married life has never felt this peaceful. Thank you, Daniel, for showing me what real love is." Grace nearly threw her phone out the window. "Does he have a death wish?" she muttered. "No," I said coldly. "He has a game, and we're going to end it." We split the plan into phases. Phase 1, contact Elena without scaring her. Phase 2, get the truth from Daniel, recorded, undeniable. Phase 3, take it all to the authorities. And if justice didn't come through the courts, we'd destroy him in every way he tried to destroy us. It took us 3 days to reach Elena. We created a private message group. Grace introduced herself gently, without detail, just that she needed to speak, woman to woman, about Daniel. Elena didn't respond immediately, but on the 4th day she did. "Who are you?" she typed, "and why do you know my husband?" Grace simply sent a photo, the wedding ring, and then our photo of Grace and me standing outside the courthouse. The typing bubble blinked for a long time, then disappeared, then reappeared. One line came through, "Meet me, please." That evening, the three of us sat at a diner outside town. Elena arrived last, wearing dark sunglasses and no wedding ring. Her hands trembled as she held her coffee. And when we told her everything, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She reached into her bag and pulled out a 4th marriage certificate. "I wasn't the first either," she whispered. "He was married before all of you, 10 years ago, divorced, or so he told me." Grace and I stared at each other, stunned. This wasn't just betrayal. This was pathological. And then Elena looked at us with the coldest eyes I'd ever seen. "I don't care what he said," she whispered. "I'm going to make him regret ever saying my name." The trap we set together. We were 3 women, all married to the same man. Each of us carried the same ring, the same wounds, and the same fire burning behind our eyes. And now we had the same goal, to burn his lies to the ground. We created a plan, not one driven by rage, but by cold, deliberate strategy, because this wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was about justice. And if the law failed us, the truth wouldn't. Grace took the lead. "He's a creature of habit," she said. "If we study his schedule, his calls, his appointments, we'll find the gap, the crack where the real Daniel lives." So we built a timeline. His movements, his lies, the overlaps. The weekends he said he was on business trips. The holidays he conveniently forgot to celebrate. The anniversaries he claimed he wasn't good at remembering. Turns out he was very good at remembering. He just had to remember 4 calendars. Monday to Wednesday, he stayed with Elena. Wednesday night to Friday, he was at my place. Weekends, he was with Grace, always with an excuse. "Work's too busy. I'll make it up to you." Or worse, "You're the only calm I need right now." We called him the rotating husband, but that was about to end. Our trap was simple. We'd invite him to a meeting. Not just one wife, but all 3. We'd each message him separately, pretending we didn't know the others had done the same. Same location, same time. A quiet little cafe we rented for a private booking. No customers, no cameras. Just us and him. The day arrived. I wore a red coat, the one he once called irresistible. Grace wore a perfume he loved. Elena came in silence, her phone already recording. We waited. Every tick of the clock made my pulse louder. And then he and he walked in, smiling, oblivious. "What's that?" said his voice light. "3 of my favorite women in one place. What's this, an intervention?" His joke had died in the silence. Grace was the first to speak. "No, Daniel, this is an unveiling." He looked between us, the smile faltering. "What is this?" he asked again, softer now. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No," Elena said calmly, sliding her phone onto the table. "This is your story unraveling." We confronted him one by one. Dates, photos, receipts, messages, ring engravings. And finally, the marriage certificates. 4 names, 4 weddings, 1 man. He stared at them all, then sat down slowly, no longer smiling. "You don't understand," he whispered. "Oh, we understand perfectly," I replied. "You're not a man in love. You're a man who collects wives like trophies." He tried to stand. That's when Grace pulled out the envelope. Legal documents, filed that morning. Bigamy charges. Official, real. His face went white. You can't do this, he snapped. You're just jealous. You all loved me. No, Elena said coldly, rising from her seat. We believed you, and now we believe in something else, I added. Justice, Grace said. As he left the cafe, eyes burning, he turned and hissed, This won't end the way you think. And maybe it wouldn't. But one thing was certain. It had already ended for him. That night, the story exploded. Elena, the bravest of us, posted the full story on social media. Names redacted, but the truth unfiltered. The post went viral. Thousands of women commented, dozens reached out privately, and 3 more said they recognized the man in the photos. 3 more wives? 3 more lives. We didn't know yet. But we were no longer afraid to find out. The truth we didn't expect. We thought we had uncovered everything. We thought the worst was over. We had confronted him, exposed him, filed charges. We were 3 women, scorned, bruised, but no longer broken, standing in the wreckage of the lives he built on lies. But Daniel Matthews wasn't done with us yet, because what we found next would make us question everything we thought we knew. 3 days after the cafe confrontation, a woman named Tessa Rowe reached out. She wasn't one of his wives. She was something else. She sent Grace a private message that began with 6 words. You don't know who he is. Attached was a police report, filed in Nevada 7 years ago. Subject Daniel Matthews, alias Derek Sloan. The charge? Fraud, identity theft, false marriage license. We stared at the screen in disbelief. He wasn't even Daniel Matthews. That name, that identity, that life, it wasn't real. He had forged documents, faked his past, stolen social security numbers, and weaved his story like a master storyteller. He married under 4 different aliases, in 4 different states, under 4 different backgrounds. He was a ghost. A carefully crafted lie wrapped in charm, wrapped in tailored suits and soft-spoken promises. Elena whispered, We didn't just marry a liar, we married a stranger. Tess explained everything. She had dated Derek Sloan years ago and nearly married him, until he vanished days before their wedding, taking $18,000 from her savings. No goodbyes. Just a wipe phone and a hollow bank account. She tracked him down years later, but by then he had become Daniel Matthews. New face, new identity, new victims. We went to the police with this new evidence, but we quickly realized something chilling. Every state had a different version of him. In one, he was a former Marine. In another, a software engineer. One wife thought he was a pastor's son. Another believed he was an orphan from Ohio. He had layers of lies so deep, even law enforcement struggled to piece him together. Grace said it best. He didn't just break hearts, he broke the system. Meanwhile, Daniel, or whoever he truly was, had vanished. His apartment was empty, his bank account drained, his phone disconnected. But we weren't done. We contacted a private investigator, Tessa's cousin. Within a week, he found something shocking. Not where Daniel was, but who helped him disappear. It was a woman, and not just any woman. His mother. A woman who had changed her name 3 times in 20 years. Someone with a long list of fraud charges in the 80s and 90s. A woman who taught her son how to reinvent, manipulate, and vanish. It was no accident. It was legacy. We gathered in my living room, the 3 of us, as the investigator laid out a wall full of printed photos, court records, and pins connected by red string. It felt like a movie, except we weren't watching and we were living it. And then Elena, quiet as ever, pointed to a photo we hadn't noticed before. It was a wedding photo, not mine, not Grace's, not hers. A 5th woman, another wife. And on her wrist was the same bracelet I wore. He gave us all the same gift, the same ring, the same charm, the same script. We had built a trap. We had delivered justice. But this truth, this went deeper than betrayal. This was his design, and we were just the ones who made it visible. So we decided something that night. We wouldn't just expose him. We would erase him. We would take every lie, every fake name, every hollow promise, and destroy the myth. We would show the world not just what he did to us, but who he really was, the woman before all of us. The 5th woman haunted me, not just because she looked familiar, but because there was something in her eyes I recognized. The tired, glassy stare of someone who had once believed everything until it shattered in her hands. Grace printed the photo out and laid it beside ours. Same pose, same smile, same man. Except in this photo, he looked younger, less polished, before the tailored suits and silver watch. This was early Daniel, or Derek, or whatever name he used back then. The caption, found through a cached Wettin blog page, read, The beginning of forever, Mr. and Mrs. Aiden Charles. Aiden. A new name. A new lie. We tracked her down through the wedding venue's website, buried in archives. Her name was Marilyn Frost. She hadn't posted anything in years. No recent photos, no updates. Just an old Instagram page with a quote in the bio. Sometimes survival looks like silence. That line stayed with me. What had she survived? Elena took the first step, messaged her with kindness, not accusation. We waited for 2 days. Then, just after midnight, a reply came. Don't come looking for answers unless you're ready to lose the rest of your peace. Chills. We responded gently, told her our stories, that we weren't trying to blame her. We weren't even trying to fix anything. We just needed to understand. A few hours later, we got to send later. We got a voice memo. Her voice was slow, hollow, like a person narrating a ghost story she never wanted to remember. I married him when I was 21, she began. He told me his name was Aiden, said he was from Colorado, raised by his aunt after a tragic car accident. I fell in love with his sadness. The first year was beautiful, the second, strange. He started traveling, missing birthdays, coming home with gifts instead of honesty. One day I found a photo in his drawer of another woman, another ring. I confronted him. He disappeared. He took my inheritance, my trust, my will to start over. Her voice cracked when she said, He didn't break my heart, he broke my identity. Grace wiped her eyes. Elena sat in stunned silence. I just stared at the floor, feeling the full weight of it all. We weren't his first heartbreaks. We were just chapters. He had written and rewritten himself so many times, even he had lost track. But Marilyn's final words were the ones that sealed everything. You think you're the end of his story, but I promise you, he's still writing. That was the moment we realized. He wasn't done. Not with us. Not with anyone. We launched a website the next day, a page called The Wives Project, where every victim could share their story anonymously. We collected timelines, faces, names. We verified documents, police reports, marriage certificates, and slowly a pattern emerged. 7 women, 4 states, dozens of aliases, but there was one that didn't fit. A woman named Nina. No marriage certificate, no bank account drained, no honeymoon. Just a disappearance. She had been dating Daniel for 6 months. 6 months. Then she vanished. Her sister submitted the tip, said Nina stopped returning calls. Her apartment had been emptied, no signs of struggle. Just a single word on the kitchen table written in red lipstick. Mistake. That changed everything. Because up until then, Daniel had been a master manipulator. Yes, a liar. A con man. But not dangerous, not violent. Now we weren't sure. And the truth, we were no longer just telling a story. We were digging up a grave he thought he'd buried deep enough to be forgotten. The more we uncovered, the more his past unraveled. And the more we feared. What if we weren't just his wives? What if we were his witnesses? What if his real secret wasn't about marriage, but about how far he'd go to erase anyone who found out the truth? The face behind the mask. His face was everywhere, yet nowhere. Each photo of him with a different woman revealed a slightly altered version, hair longer, beard shorter, sometimes glasses, sometimes clean cut, but always those eyes. Eyes that knew how to calculate trust. Eyes that learned to mirror love but never feel it. After Marilyn's warning and Nina's mysterious disappearance, we knew this wasn't just a story of lies. It was about survival now. And it was no longer just about us. The private investigator we'd hired, Tessa's cousin, called us one morning, his voice more urgent than ever. I think I found the original identity. That sentence alone froze my blood. He sent over a file, unmarked, confidential, no email header. Inside it was a juvenile court record, sealed, but cracked by a whistleblower who had been following our site. Inside, a name none of us had ever heard before, Samuel Blake. Born in Michigan, raised by a woman who'd been arrested 5 times for theft, fraud, and psychological abuse. Homeschooled until age 13, placed into the foster system after an anonymous CPS report. 3 years later, he ran away. Vanished. No digital footprint. Until 7 years later, he resurfaces as Aiden Charles. Then Derek Sloan, then Daniel Matthews, and finally ours. Samuel Blake didn't just disappear. He rebuilt himself again and again, each identity more perfect than the last. Not for the sake of running, but for the thrill of becoming whoever we needed him to be. And behind each version of himself, he left wreckage. Some legal, some emotional, and maybe some physical. Elena sat beside me, pale as snow. I thought he was broken. I wanted to fix him. Grace clenched her jaw. He never needed fixing. He needed stopping. We agreed on one thing. We were no longer just wives. We were his trail of witnesses. The Wives Project website exploded after we published his origin story. But with the exposure came threats, anonymous messages, emails like, "You don't know what you're starting. Dig deeper and you'll regret it. He isn't who you think, and he's not done yet." We increased our security, hired an attorney, began speaking with an investigative journalist from a major outlet. Because if we couldn't catch him through the courts, we'd expose him through the world. But then came the voicemail. Elena received it on a Tuesday night. It was exactly 9 seconds long. There was no voice, just a soft, familiar breath. And in the background, a woman crying. Not Elena, not Grace, not me. Another. That's when we broke. We couldn't sleep. We couldn't eat. The fear we'd buried beneath our fury was now clawing its way to the surface. He was watching us, mocking us, daring us to keep going, but we didn't stop. Grace, the strongest of us, looked me in the eye and said, "Let him watch. He built his power in the shadows. Let's drag his face into the light." 3 days later, we released the final post. His real name is Samuel Blake. He was never yours. He was never real. But your pain is, and we believe you, Ted. It went viral. Over 200 women submitted photos, notes, memories. We built a timeline of his life through the lens of his destruction. And then something unbelievable happened. A childhood friend reached out. She said her name was Haley. She grew up next door to him when he was still Samuel. She told us something that chilled us to the core. He used to bury dolls in the backyard. Told me they were failed versions of his future wife. We went silent. Grace turned pale. Elena whispered, "He wasn't broken. He was built this way." The trap that turned on us. At first, we thought we were safe. We had the truth, the documents, the exposure, the spotlight. But the truth is, predators don't run from the light. They wait until you blink. 2 days after the final post about Samuel Blake went live, everything changed. The website went down, not crashed, wiped. Our backup drive, corrupted. The investigators' emails, gone. Grace's cloud storage, locked from a foreign login and erased. And then, I was alone. It was 2:03 a.m. Someone knocked once hard on my door. I froze. No follow-up, no ringing. Just silence. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. But taped to the door was a photo of me. Sleeping. I dropped it. My hand shook. The note on the back read, "You wanted to find me, you did." By morning, Grace had already called the police, but there were no fingerprints, no camera footage, no trail. He had vanished, and yet he was everywhere, watching, anticipating. And then he made the first move. A new video appeared on a hidden subreddit. We were tagged anonymously. The title, "Who's Lying Now?" It was a montage of each of us. Our crying videos, the cafe confrontation, private texts, audio from calls we never recorded. He had been recording us all along. He knew this would happen. The video went viral in a corner of the internet that feeds on chaos. Suddenly, we were being questioned. Are they just bitter exes? Gold diggers? Attention seekers? Public sympathy started to shift. He had flipped the script. He turned us into the villains. Grace lost a client the next day. Elena's apartment got vandalized. My boss told me to make a mental health break, a polite way of pushing me out. Everything we'd built began to crack. And that's when Grace said the one thing we had all been avoiding. What if we weren't the first ones to expose him? What if someone else tried before and disappeared? So we dug deeper. Not into him, into the holes he left behind. In forums, in court cases that were suddenly closed. And that's when we found her. Nina, the one who disappeared. A friend of hers posted an old tweet 3 years ago. If I go missing and his name isn't real, and he knows things no one should. It had 2 likes. Now it was evidence. We traced the account to an abandoned storage unit rental under her name. We went there, together. It was cold, dusty, silent. Inside were boxes, clothes, journals, and a locked metal drawer. Inside, a burner phone, still charged. We opened the gallery. Videos, messages, and finally, a video of him sitting across from the camera, calm, smirking. If you're watching this, and want you in this, he said, you probably think you've won. But I don't play to win. I play to last. He leaned forward. Truth is a lens, and I know how to bend it. You think people care about facts? No, they care about stories, and I'm better at telling them than you'll ever be. That night, Elena didn't sleep. Grace stayed at my apartment. We knew we were in danger, but something had shifted. Not in him, in us. We weren't angry anymore. We were no longer just survivors. We were no longer just the wives. We were the ones who knew his story better than he did. And that made us his greatest threat. So we went quiet. We shut down the website, went offline, let him think we had lost. Because when someone only knows how to hide in shadows, you beat them by becoming the silence. We were done exposing him. Now, we were going to trap him. When the hunter becomes the hunted, silence is powerful. Not the kind that comes from fear, the kind that waits, that watches, that listens, and then strikes. We knew we couldn't beat him through the courts. He was too good at disappearing, at shifting blame, at using the system like a chessboard. So we decided to do what he never expected. We played his game. We let the world forget, let the hashtags fade, let the clicks drop. We made it seem like we moved on. And slowly, and he got comfortable. One night, Grace received an email. No name, just a subject line. Did you miss me? Inside was a photo of her again, but not recent. It was from inside her hat, and inside her hay. Taken 2 weeks ago. He had been there, and she didn't even know. That was it. The final straw. We weren't going to wait anymore. We reactivated the Wives Project website, but this time it wasn't about exposure. It was bait. We planted a new profile, one that didn't exist before. A fictional woman. Smart, naive, exactly his type. We built her digital presence, socials, background, even fake videos of her talking about trust issues and looking for something real. And we made sure that the trail led back to us. Just enough for him to notice and bite. And he did. 3 weeks later, she received a message from an account named Wanderer87. It began like always. You seem different. Like someone who's been hurt but still believes. Can I tell you a secret? The way he groomed trust wasn't just predictable. It was his signature. We played along, let the messages build, let the calls begin, even set up a meeting. We chose a city we knew had excellent surveillance, Boston. The cafe had glass walls. The booth faced a mirror. The cameras were all pre-positioned. We were wired. Protected, watching. And then he walked in, older, thinner, but those eyes, still the same. He smiled, ordered a black coffee, and sat across from our decoy. He thought he was in control until Grace walked in. Then Elena, then me. For the first time in his life, he looked afraid, not because he was caught, but because he knew there was no way out. We had recordings, live surveillance, 2 private investigators nearby, a police unit waiting across the street. He stood up. I didn't hurt anyone, he said, smiling nervously. I gave you all something to believe in. Elena didn't blink. You gave us fiction, Grace whispered. Now here's your ending. And I said the final words. You're no longer the author of this story. He was arrested on the spot. Multiple charges, wire fraud, identity theft, bigamy, harassment, and now attempted stalking under false pretenses. He pled not guilty. Of course he did. But we had built something stronger than evidence. A community, a movement, a truth that couldn't be rewritten anymore. 6 months later, we stood outside the courthouse. His face was no longer calm. It was broken. Because for the first time, his story wasn't his anymore. It was ours. Elena started teaching that self-defense workshops for women. Grace launched a podcast, The Wife Files, to help others recognize manipulation and hidden abuse. And me, I wrote everything down, word for word, for the woman who might be reading this in silence, thinking she's crazy, thinking it's her fault. It's not. He built his life on hiding women from each other. We built ours by bringing them together. This wasn't just about one man. It was about reclaiming our names and making sure he never forgets them. And just like that, everything changed, but the pain, it still lingers. If this story touched something deep inside you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more truths that hit close to home. This is Love and Betrayal, where every heartbreak has a voice. And every silence hides a secret.